I'm 74 years old and the silence in my house is loud enough to ring in my ears. It's 5 a.m. I've been awake for an hour. At my age, sleep becomes a fickle friend. It comes when you don't want it, usually in the middle of the afternoon, and leaves you when you need it most in the dark hours of the morning. So I sit here. I look at the dark window. I drink coffee that tastes a little too bitter because I lost the energy to measure the grounds properly. And I think about time. When you are young, time feels like a granite mountain. It feels solid. It feels like something you can chip away at, day after day, and it will always be there. You think you can waste it, or spend it, or save it up for later. You think it's durable. I am here to tell you that time is not granite. It is not stone. Time is something far more fragile. It is like a spider web. It is intricate and beautiful, but if you brush against it the wrong way, or if the wind blows just a little too hard, it snaps, and you cannot weave it back together. I didn't realize this until the web was already broken. I spent the majority of my life, my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, and even my 50s, living for a future that I was absolutely certain would arrive. I was a planner. I was a responsible man. I wasn't a drinker. I wasn't a gambler. I was the guy who showed up to work 15 minutes early and left an hour late. I worked in logistics, supply chains, moving things from point A to point B. It requires a lot of coordination, a lot of foresight. If a truck breaks down in Ohio, you need a contingency plan. I was good at that. I was good at seeing the problems before they happened and fixing them. I made good money doing it. I told myself, and I told my wife, Ellen, that I was buying us freedom. That was the phrase I used. I'm buying our freedom, Elle. I remember standing in the kitchen of our first real house. It was a colonial with a leaky basement, but we were proud of it. I was 32. She was holding our oldest son, who was maybe 6 months old. I was putting on my tie, getting ready for a business trip to Chicago. She asked me if I really had to go. She said the baby had a fever, and she was tired. She didn't complain often, so when she did, it mattered. I remember the feeling in my chest. It was a mix of guilt and self-righteousness. I felt guilty for leaving, but I felt righteous because I was doing this for them. That's what I told myself. I kissed her on the forehead. Not a real kiss, just a peck, a transaction, and I said, I have to go. This account is going to pay for his college. I'm doing this for us. We'll have time to relax later. Later? That word is the most dangerous drug in the human language. Later. I went to Chicago. I landed the account. I felt like a king. When I came home 3 days later, the fever had broken, the crisis was over, and Ellen was handling things. She always handled things. The moment of need had passed and I had missed it. But I thought it was okay, because I had brought home the victory. I had secured the future. That became the pattern of my life. I wasn't a monster. I was just absent. Even when I was in the room, I was absent. I was physically sitting at the dinner table, but my mind was on the quarterly review. I was physically pushing the swing at the park, but I was checking my watch, calculating how much longer I had to do this before I could get back to the real work. I viewed the moments of my life as obstacles to get through so I could get to the finish line. The finish line was retirement. The finish line was someday. Someday we would take that trip to Italy Ellen talked about. Someday I would read those books stacking up on my nightstand. Someday I would really get to know my son, not just as his father, but as his friend. I treated time as a currency I could bank. I thought if I sacrificed the hours now, I would get them back with interest later. I didn't understand fragility then. The erosion was slow. That's the tricky part about it. If you ruin your life all at once, it's loud. A divorce, a bankruptcy, a scandal. Those are explosions. You can see the smoke. But my mistake wasn't an explosion. It was a slow leak. It was the way Ellen stopped asking me to come to bed at a reasonable hour, For years, she would come to the door of my study and say, "Are you coming up soon?" And for years, I would say, "Just 20 more minutes." Eventually, she stopped coming to the door. She just went to sleep. I viewed that as a victory. I thought, good, now I can work uninterrupted. I didn't realize she had just given up on waiting for me. It was the way my children stopped sharing their small victories with me. They realized that Dad would just say, "That's nice," without looking up from the newspaper or the laptop. So they saved the stories for their mother. I became a figurehead in my own home. Respected, sure. Provided for, absolutely. But not known. I woke up one day and I was 65. The retirement party was nice. People made speeches. They gave me a watch. A watch. The irony of that isn't lost on me now. They gave me a machine to measure the time I no longer had a use for. We had the money. The house was paid off. The college funds were full. We had made it. We had arrived at later. I remember the morning after I retired. I sat at the breakfast table with Ellen. The sun was coming in through the window, hitting the salt and pepper shakers. I looked at her. I really looked at her for the first time in years. She looked older. Of course she did. But she also looked tired, and she looked distant. "Well," I said, "we made it. We can go to Italy now." She smiled, but it wasn't the smile I remembered from our 30s. It was a polite smile. The kind you give a stranger who holds the door for you. "That sounds nice," she said. But there was no energy in it. The fire had gone out. Not because she didn't love me, but because she had learned to live without the promise of me. She had built a whole inner life, a whole garden of thoughts and feelings that I had never bothered to water. We booked the trip. We were supposed to go in the autumn. 2 months before we were scheduled to leave, Ellen found a lump. It wasn't a long battle. It wasn't one of those stories where you have years to make amends and say all the things you didn't say. It was fast, it was brutal, it was a thief in the night. From the diagnosis to the funeral was 4 months. I spent every single minute of those 4 months by her side. I didn't care about the stock market. I didn't care about the news. I didn't care about the house maintenance. I sat in the hospital chair, sleeping in uncomfortable positions, holding her hand. I tried to cram 40 years of presence into 4 months of dying. I tried to tell her everything. I tried to listen to everything, but you can't. You can't compress a lifetime of intimacy into a season of pain. The math doesn't work. One night near the end, she woke up. The morphine had made her lucid for a moment. The room was dark, lit only by the machines. She looked at me and she squeezed my hand. Her grip was weak. "You're here," she whispered. "I'm here, Elle." "I'm right here," I said. I was crying. I couldn't stop crying. She smiled, that faint smile again. "I missed you," she said. And then she closed her eyes. She didn't mean she missed me because I had been gone to the cafeteria. She meant she had missed me for 30 years. She missed the man who was supposed to be there, living the life with her, instead of working to pay for it. That sentence cracked me open. I missed you. She died 3 days later. Now, I am 74. I live in the house that I paid for. I have the furniture that we picked out. I have the silence. I didn't realize how fragile time was. I thought I could put it on a shelf. I thought I could pause the movie of my life and come back to it when the work was done. But the movie doesn't pause. It keeps playing, whether you are watching it or not. I have a lot of regrets, but the biggest one isn't about the big things. It's not that we didn't go to Italy. Italy is just a place. My regret is the Tuesday nights. I regret the Tuesday nights when I could have just sat on the couch and watched a stupid TV show with her, holding her hand, but instead, I was in the office answering emails that no one remembers today. I regret the Saturday mornings when my kids wanted to show me a fort they built, and I said, "Not now, I have to mow the lawn." The lawn grew back. The kids grew up. I regret treating my life like a to-do list instead of an experience. When you are young, you think fragility means weakness. You think being tough means being durable. But true fragility is the nature of the moment. This moment, right now, as I'm speaking to you, it's gone. You can't get it back. It's like a soap bubble. It shimmers, it floats, and then pop, it's over. If you are listening to this and you are young, and by young, I mean anyone who still thinks they have plenty of time, please hear me. Stop waiting for the right time. The right time is a myth. There is only time. Don't buy into the lie that you have to trade your entire present for a secure future. Yes, work hard. Yes, be responsible. Pay your bills. But do not sell your soul to the calendar. If you have a partner, go to them today, look them in the eye, listen to what they are saying, not just with your ears, but with your attention. Put down the phone. Close the laptop. If your child asks you to play, play. The emails will still be there in an hour. The childhood will not. If you have a dream of doing something, painting, traveling, learning to dance, I don't care what it is, do not say, I'll do it when I retire. You might not retire, or you might retire and find that the person you wanted to do it with is gone. Or you might find that you are physically unable to do it. I see young men and women today running so fast. I see them on their phones while they walk down the street. I see them at restaurants sitting across from each other, scrolling through feeds of strangers, ignoring the living, breathing human being right in front of them. It makes me want to scream. It makes me want to shake them and say, look up, it's breaking. The web is breaking and you don't even see it. But I can't. I'm just an old man with a coffee cup. I have learned that you cannot lecture people into wisdom. Pain is usually the only teacher that people listen to. I just hope your pain is less than mine. I hope you realize the fragility before it snaps. I visit Ellen's grave every Sunday. It's a routine now. I bring fresh flowers, I talk to the headstone, I tell her about the weather. I tell her about the grandkids, who visit sometimes but who are busy with their own lives, their own races against the clock. I tell her I'm sorry. I say it every week. I'm sorry I missed you. But the stone doesn't answer. The grass just waves in the wind. The clouds move across the sky, indifferent to my apology. That's the thing about time. It doesn't care if you're sorry, it just moves. I am not telling you this to depress you. I am telling you this so you can be smarter than I was. Value the boring moments. Value the quiet. Value the person sitting across the table from you chewing their toast too loudly. Because one day, the silence will be absolute, and you would give everything you own, every dollar, every accolade, every promotion, just to hear that chewing noise one more time. I'm going to finish my coffee now. The sun is starting to come up. The birds are starting to sing. It's a new day. I don't have many of them left, so I'm going to try to just sit in this one. I'm going to watch the light change on the floorboards. I'm going to listen to the house settle. I'm going to be here. Finally, if you can, take a moment today to just stop. Take a breath. Look at what you have, not what you're trying to get. The web is fragile. Don't break it. A photorealistic, documentary-style interview still of a handsome elderly man in his late 60s, seated comfortably in an armchair in a warm, lived-in living room, looking directly at the camera with a calm, thoughtful expression. Medium close-up framing at eye level, slightly asymmetrical, showing chest to head. Soft, natural daylight enters through a nearby window, evenly lighting his face. Background elements like blurred bookshelves, framed family photos, and indoor plants create a personal, intimate atmosphere with neutral, natural tones.